Hello, today's video is about a founding member of the Football League and a relatively successful club who has seen a downtrodden form in recent years, Aston Villa. Aston Villa was formed in March of 1874 by members of the Villa Cross Wesleyan Chapel in Handsworth. George Ramsay would eventually join the club 2 years after. He would go on to revolutionize the club. Spectators were drawn by his skill and the way the club would play. The club would eventually win the Birmingham Senior Cup in 1880. Later, in 1886, Villa decided they needed a paid manager, the first in the country. George Ramsay was the obvious choice. With Ramsay, the club would win the FA Cup in 1870, becoming the first Midland club to do so. Eventually, Aston Villa would be founding members of the Football League in 1888. Ramsay would also adapt the club to a quick passing style of play, which won them their first league title in 1893, second FA Cup in 1894, and 2 more league titles in 1895 and 1896. In 1897, after winning the domestic double, they would move to Villa Park, where they still play today. Villa won 2 more FA Cups and another league title before Ramsay retired in 1926 at the age of 71. After Ramsay's retirement, other clubs started catching up to Villa's success. The club was still successful for a few more years, remaining in the top flight until 1935 when the club was relegated. This was largely due to a poor run of defensive form in the season, culminating in a 7-1 loss to Arsenal. Villa would later gain back promotion after a few seasons, but was still facing mediocrity up until the Second World War. Even after the war, Villa was still a mid-table club. Though finally, in 1956, 37 years after their last trophy, Eric Houghton led Villa to a 2-1 win against Manchester United to win their 7th FA Cup. Though, 2 years later, Villa would be relegated for a second time. In 1960, they were promoted and would even win the first Football League Cup the following season. But yet again, in 1967, they were relegated. Villa didn't get an easy escape though. Financial difficulty and poor management caused Villa to be relegated to the 3rd division for the first time in their history. Villa recuperated and even got a new training ground to replace the one sold years prior. Villa were promoted back to the 2nd division in 1971. In 1974, Roy Saunders was appointed manager of the club. With his no-nonsense approach to management, he would win the League Cup the following season and even gain promotion back to the 1st division. Villa's success would continue, even achieving a 4th place finish with the likes of Brian Little and Andy Gray. Finally, in 1981, after 2 changes of chairmen in the club, Aston Villa won a league title. After a quarter-final finish in the European Cup, Saunders grew frustrated with the club and was eventually replaced by assistant manager Tony Barton. With Barton, Villa would become one of 6 English clubs today to win the European Cup in 1982, beating Bayern Munich 1-0 using backup goalkeeper Nigel Spink to keep the clean sheet. In typical Villa fashion, poor management and terrible use of funds would cause Villa to be relegated in 1987, 5 years after conquering Europe. After gaining back promotion the next season, Villa would be founding members of the Premier League in 1992, finishing 2nd. Villa would continue with success, winning the League Cup back-to-back in 1994 and 1995. After this, Villa would slowly fall out of European spots. The following years, the club faced mediocrity and finished runners-up to the League Cup and FA Cup. In 2010, American businessman and owner of the Cleveland Browns, Randy Lerner, bought the club. However, this did not change anything, as in 2016, the club would be relegated again. They would win back promotion through the playoffs in 2019, beating Derby County 2-1. The following years, the club would be battling relegation until last season, where after a poor start, Steven Gerrard was sacked and replaced by Emery, who guided the club to a 7th place finish, achieving the European Conference League. Thank you for watching the video. Our next video will be about our first B club, and that will be Barnsley. That will be coming out shortly. Thank you.